Hey folks, join us at Theodore Roosevelt National Park where we stay in a horse corral campground, do some amazing hikes, and have not one, but two buffalo encounters. At the end of our last video, we were leaving Glacier National Park, heading east 562 miles to Medora, North Dakota. After a quick stop at an Army Corps of Engineers free campground on Lake Peck, we made it to Medora the next day. Immediately upon our arrival in Medora, we headed right to the park, hoping to grab a first-come, first-served campsite. No line at the entrance checkpoint, and a pretty empty visitor parking lot. Looking good. The 5-mile trek to Cottonwood Campground reminds me of the Badlands in South Dakota, but with a little bit more vegetation. What we didn't realize is half the campground was closed because it was late in the season and all of the other sites were taken. It would have been really cool to have stayed here. It's dry camping, but it's so convenient inside the park, and there are plenty of reports of bison and even wild horses in your campsites. As we stopped to contemplate our next step, we watched as a man was severely scolded by a park ranger for getting way too close to the bison. North Dakota now, we were hoping to get into the Cottonwood Campground in Theodore Roosevelt State Park. Unfortunately, it was full. It was first come, first serve, and we didn't get lucky. Would have been nice. It would have been in the trees. Could have woke up the buffalo and buffalo crap in our campground. But now we're at Sully Creek Campground State Park. It's really nice. No one's here. Clearly, this is a place for horses and horse camping, because there's a lot of corrals here and it smells like horse shit. But we have electric, and so it's going to be good. So we're sitting at the Skyline Vista in Theodore Roosevelt National Park at a place that's supposed to be pretty epic for sunsets. And the sunset is gorgeous, but we're the only people here. Like, the campground is full. Yes, it's October 1st, but we're the only people here. We've got this whole sunset to ourselves. It's awesome. As we were sitting there waiting for the sun to set, unbeknownst to us, a bison stealthily snuck up behind us, and we didn't notice it until we turned around. It was really cool being close to this animal, although it was blocking our exit, and that was a little bit intimidating because that thing was big. And as it turns out, this wouldn't be the only time on this trip we were corralled by a bison. The sunset was beautiful, as the time lapse from this action cam shows, and these colors are completely unedited. And in the waning twilight, we caught a couple of elk on the ridge. And one thing about this park, wildlife is everywhere, and if you drive at night, be super careful. We returned to the park early the next morning to do the big Plateau and Elkblom trail loop, and the deer were already there to greet us. It is Tuesday morning, I think. Maybe Wednesday morning, I'm not sure. Wednesday morning, October 2nd. We are doing the big Plateau and Elkblom trail, about 5 miles. Beautiful day. Warm, but not too warm, breezy. Here we go. I shut the camera off at just the wrong time. We saw Bobcat stalking a prairie dog, and when the Bobcat saw us, He took off like a bat on a hill. After getting in our car and heading back from the hike, we caught a glimpse of wild horses. Apologize for the shaky video. The car was moving and I was fully zoomed in with my camera. So we just finished the Elkblom and Big Plateau Trail in Theodore Roosevelt State Park. It's about 5.4 miles. Great trail, some elevation gain, 4 water crossings. We saw prairie dogs, we saw antelope, and we even saw, I don't know if it was a bobcat or a lynx, we'll have to find out, that was stalking a prairie dog. And unfortunately, well, I guess we may have saved a prairie dog, but we might have cost a bobcat or a lynx its breakfast. Next morning, we headed out into a blinding sun as we made our way east on 94 before turning northward on our 70-mile jaunt to the northern unit of the park. On the way, we stopped at the Painted Canyon Overlook. If we had time, this would have been a great place to hike, but the morning view looking north was still spectacular. Painted Canyon was a spectacle to see, but it sort of reminded me of that Chevy Chase movie Vacation. Remember when he's at the Grand Canyon?
Don't you want to look at the Grand Canyon?
There's only one road in the northern unit, and it's about a 28-mile scenic drive. And our plan is to go the whole way and also do a couple of hikes to take in the sights. The road rolls across the Badlands and then climbs up to the Red Bend Overlook point. We'll see what that looks like. And from there, it traces the rim of the prairie with sweeping Badland views all the way to the end of the road at a place called Oxbow Overlook. We're going to check that out too. Well, had we known that this was wide open and it was so beautiful, we would have stayed here. Past Juniper Campground and about 4 3/4 miles in, and literally right off the road on the right, there's a very cool geographic formation that's worth stopping for. These formations, called Cannonball Concretions, were made when water filled with minerals seeped into porous rock. Over time, a long time, the minerals hardened inside the rock, and then the surrounding softer rock eroded away, leaving the hardened core that looks like a round cannonball. It is really cool. And I'll bet you there are more of these things hiding in the bluff side, just waiting to roll out. Give you an idea how big this is. Pretty big. Pretty cool. So we're at the Caprock Coulee trailhead. It is 4.4 miles. I don't know, something like 600 feet of elevation gain. We're going to do the tough part first, so we're going to go clockwise around this trail. Slow and steady wins the race. Remember that. That's my motto. So I tend to rate hikes or cliff edges by death fall versus non-death fall. This is definitely a death fall. Ran into some women who were asking us if there were any bison on the trail, and we said no, we didn't run into any, at which point she said good, because she's tired of bushwhacking, which makes me think as we get out of the woods and back down into the plains, we're going to run into some bison, but we'll see. Just completed the Caprock Coulee Trail, 4.6 miles, 585 feet of elevation gain, about 2 miles an hour we average, maybe a little less with rests and things of that nature. But hey, it was a good trail, but we saw not a wildlife. No birds, no chipmunks, no prairie dogs, no bison, no sheep, no nothing. But it was still a great trail. So after taking a peek at the Cannonball Concretions and then doing the Caprock Coulee hike, which again was about 4 miles, we drove another 9 miles to Oxbow Overlook and did the Sperati Point Trail. So after a quick bite to eat, we decided to get a move on this 2.5 mile out and back hike, but we didn't get going as quickly as we would have wanted. As it turned out, there was a herd of bison blocking the trail, and they made it very clear they had no intention of letting us by. So we went back to the parking lot and waited just a bit. They didn't like the idea that we were going that way. Yeah, so we're not going that way.
A few moments later.
They were not having any of us going right through them or anywhere near them. I think we're okay here, babe. Yeah. I think we're okay here, don't you? No. All right. I don't know. Oh, the guy said if they wag their tail, that's not a good sign. Right? Come on.
When you come over the hill to the parking lot, there's a herd of buffalo and they aren't happy.
They were not happy with us. So you wanna scoot to the left as you go to the left off the trail?
Way to the north of the trail.
We encountered them coming out.
Yeah.
So.
Some might consider this trail monotonous as the scenery is pretty much the same all the way along, but the payoff at the end is pretty sweet.
And not too long ago, we were sitting at that picnic bench.
After driving the 70 miles back to Medora, we scooted back over to the Southern Unit Visitor Center hoping to see the replica of Teddy's cabin, but alas, it was closed. So we drove back into town, saw some horses on a hitching post, and a lady on a bison. And right across the street was Boots, where we had a burger and a beer. Elk burger and fries. There was way too much to do on our only 2 days in Medora. And we missed a lot, like the famous musical show, the Cowboy Hall of Fame, the historical Chateau de Mort. So we'll be back for sure. Until next time, everyone, carry on. Cheers.